Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Chats, a weekly podcast featuring alumni from the Department of Broadcasting and Journalism here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the Associate Dean in the College of Fine Arts and Communication. I'm also the former chair of Broadcasting Journalism and also the former professor for my next guest, Denise Hnytka Nelson from the class of 2006. It was a few years ago.
Oh, 2006. 15 years.
Oh my goodness. But a glorious time, I tell you.
Oh, I look back at my time at Western so fondly, for a variety of reasons. Number one, because I'm still doing this thing that I went to Western to do, but I met my husband at Western. I met some of my best friends at Western. I'm on the Alumni Council now. So it's Western's an hour and a half away. So Western is so connected to my life in so many ways still. And I love that.
So let's tell everyone, in case they don't know, where you are, what's going on in your life.
So I am right now sitting at my home in Davenport, Iowa. I work just across the river in Moline, Illinois. We're in the market that's known as the Quad Cities. And so right now I am the evening anchor at WQAD, and we're the ABC affiliate in this market. And so now I anchor the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock newscasts. I've been here for about 10 years, and I used to do the 5, 6, 6:30, and 10, but because of the pandemic and having 2 kids, I've been able to scale my schedule back to just the 5 and 6 o'clock news, which has been a crucial development in that work-life balance. And yeah, coming up on 10 years here, which is also crazy to think about.
Yeah, and as you said, you have a wonderful family, and I'm just so happy for all the good things that are happening in your life.
Yeah, two little boys I have. One is 4, one is 2. My husband is a Western graduate. He is an electrician. He went to Western for business and finance, and so now he runs his own electrical firm with his brother. And yeah, my 2 boys start out every morning. I'm just in that stage where every morning they're crying, every morning, and it's about something insane. So this morning I made my 4-year-old wear a pair of green shorts, and he pointed right at me and he said, "You're mean for making me wear these shorts, and I'm calling the police." So that's how we started the morning.
Oh, enjoy those times.
He's just like having a moment where we usually cry about shorts every day.
Well, let's go into your history a little bit, because
Yeah.
I want to talk about, you came to WIU from Palatine, but at some point, did you ever realize that you were somebody that could be a performer, somebody that wanted to be involved with the media?
Sometimes I hate telling this story because it feels a little cliche, but I was a senior in high school at Fremd High School in Palatine, and that's when 9/11 happened. And, I was old enough then to really understand what was going on. And I'm sitting in high school math class, and we start hearing about this thing that went on. And at that time, all you could do was go to the TV. And it got to be a serious enough thing quickly enough that they started setting up TVs for us to watch. And I just remember in that moment being like, I need to figure out what is happening, because I wanted to tell other people, my friends, well, here's what they just said on the news. This is what they just said. I just heard him say. And it was sort of in those moments that I realized, like, wow, I see the power of these people on TV right now who are our only source for information. And I found this passion of being the one who wanted to hear all the stuff and tell everyone else all the stuff. And so it was from those moments on that I decided that I could be in broadcasting. And I don't necessarily even really know why, because I don't think I was the most outgoing person. I don't think that I thought that I was really the type of person who belonged on camera. I don't I don't think I ever thought about those parts of it,
Right.
but I did think about being a nosy enough person that I wanted to learn what was going on and to be the one who was in the know and to share that information with other people. I think all the idea of being on camera sort of came later when I figured out exactly what the job would mean. I never thought about writing for a newspaper. I didn't even necessarily think about being on the radio. It just sort of happened that it would be in television news broadcasting.
And on your route to becoming such a good storyteller, I remember meeting you as a freshman because and I don't know why I do, but I remember those early times, and I think you were selected as one of our news anchors because probably that was the reason, is that it was such a rarity for somebody that was a freshman to be selected as an anchor. And I just remember thinking, okay, well, she's going to be going somewhere. But what are your memories from those early years?
I remember seeing on a billboard that you could audition for this news broadcast. And I think at that time I might have been, I don't even know if you have it anymore. There's like the Channel 4 where there's just when you live in the dorms where it's just like rolling, PowerPoint presentation of this is what's happening in the dorms or whatever. And for some reason I heard about how you could go to, maybe it was Wetzel, but you could go to some place where they had a tiny little studio and you could talk over those announcements.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that where you would sign up. It was a little volunteer position. You would sign up and you would play whatever music you wanted to out of like the 20 CDs that were offered. You could play whatever music you wanted to, and then you could talk about whatever over these stupid announcements. And so I was doing that at the time, and I thought that was pretty great. So then when I see this news anchor opportunity on the billboard, I thought, well, what the heck? Like, I guess all they can do is tell me no, because I mean, I just don't think kids understand today. Like, we didn't have a YouTube hair tutorial. We didn't have anybody telling us what clothes to wear. Like, I cringe when I think back to what I was wearing and what my face looked like. But I just like showed up and thought, well, why wouldn't I try? Because
Sure.
they would say no, but oh, well, here I am trying. And next thing you know, it was like, yeah, you can do this. I'm like, oh, okay, I can.
So during that period of time, as you know, I'm aware of this, you're aware of this. We had such a wonderful group of people that
Yes.
students that really were just doing some great work. And so what other people do you remember working with in the department?
Oh, so many. Number one, I met my best friend in the broadcasting department. Allison Levy was her name at the time.
Yeah.
And we met, I remember it as we met in the area of Tom's room, the engineering office where you had to sign out your camera equipment. And I remember for some reason we were chattering about the opportunity to maybe intern one summer. And I remember she and I just turned to each other and thought, well, if we interned to the Quad Cities, we would just probably room together. And we never even really met, but we like right in that second decided, well, if we both interned in the Quad Cities, we would probably be roommates in the Quad Cities for the summer. And then we were instant friends from there, which is so bizarre. I also remember being very competitive with some of the other people that are still my friends to this day. Mike Kirkhoff is a morning anchor in Milwaukee. And he and I would always be so competitive because he was fantastically talented at play-by-play and color commentary. And he had a friend named Brian. And so they were a little partnership. And so it was like me and Allison always competing with Mike and Brian to do the best this or make the best commercial. And sometimes they would win and sometimes we would. But we were friends through all of it, but it was so fun to just always be jockeying with them for who could, have the coolest video that week. There were so many cool people in that department. Stan Davidson, we were friends for a long time. He was a blast. Oh gosh, so many.
It's funny to, to talk with people from that period of time and who they remember. For instance, when we had the opportunity in December to get together as on our Zoom call, and just the reactions to Mark Moses,
Yes.
to hear him, because Mark is such a natural talker as well, somebody that just when he's in the room, he starts to tell stories as well. And it was just a great period of time to have so many young people. As you said, I think, the idea that iron sharpens iron, this idea of how you all interacted with each other and made each other a little bit better as well.
We loved that part of it. And that's the way the department is it was so small that you knew everybody and you interacted with everybody. And yet it was large enough to foster that competitive environment where everyone was doing something a little bit different and specializing in their own area. I never got to be good friends with Mark, mostly because he was, on the radio side. And I never really went on that radio side. I think I had 1 or 2 shifts at the Dog, very, very occasionally. It must have been for just the radio class or what have you. But that was a whole nother sector of the department. And they were doing cool things and making all those radio promotions. And then over on the TV side, we were doing our different stuff. And then the sports team was doing all their different stuff. And so it's like there's such like a wide array of opportunities, and everyone was able to pick what they were drawn to. I loved that about the department.
And as you said, you met your husband.
Yeah.
At WIU. Can you share with how that happened?
Okay, so when I was in your sports broadcasting class, he played on the football team. And so I remember occasionally taking that camera one and zooming in on him on the field. And he stood out to me. I knew him like through friends of friends. He lived in that house on Stadium and Murray, that red brick house right there on the corner near the pit. And so I met him through friends, and occasionally I would sneak a peek at him on the football field. But I remember this one time there was the football program. And in the program, they always featured a player, and one of the player being featured that week was Perry Cox, who was an offensive lineman. And in his player profile, they said, which of your teammates would you let your sister date? And his answer was Turner Nelson. And that was my little football crush. And I thought, man, if a teammate says, my teammate can date my sister, I feel like that's a great endorsement, And we had already known each other kind of. And so anywho, that was kind of like some of my first memories of him. And we started dating towards the end of first semester of senior year. Obviously the time that you would get into a serious relationship at the nearly the end of senior year. But yeah, so here we are 10 years later. We've known each other for 15 years, been married for 10. So yeah, kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. So when you graduated WIU and your first job is in Sioux City, is that right?
Yes.
So tell everybody what that was like when you were getting started in the business. How did you get in that first job?
I remember this was the time when you had to send out actual VHS tapes. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I was making these VHS tapes because you would have to dub them off in the newscast control room. And so you would have to sit there in real time while these VHS tapes dubbed and dubbed and dubbed. And I would take a stack of 10 of them at a time to the Macomb post office where they would have to put the postage on every single one. And I remember I sent out 36 different tapes, which at the time felt enormous. Looking back, maybe that wasn't that many. You could send a YouTube link to 100 stations and not even blink, but 36 VHS tapes I sent out. And the one I sent out to Sioux City, I did not know where Sioux City was. I did not care where Sioux City was. I just sent the stupid tape. And so they called me, and I remember sitting in the newsroom, And I said, I got this call from this station in Sioux City, because I did not get a lot of calls back. And Adam DeBacher, do you remember Adam
Yeah.
DeBacher?
Mm-hmm.
He's a photographer for WGN now. And he looked at me and he was like, Sioux City is a terrible place. It's a terrible place, Denise. You cannot go there. And I was like, well, they're the only people who are calling me back. I might have to go there. He was like, oh, Denise, you can't go there. Denise did go there. And I went to the CBS affiliate. It was called KMEG, and it was located on exit 1 of South Dakota. So Sioux City, Iowa is on the Iowa side, but it was one of those like tri-cities markets, or tri-states, I guess. So Sioux City, Iowa, North Sioux City, Nebraska. No, North Sioux City, South Dakota, and South Sioux City, Nebraska. It was like this little triangle. So I lived on exit 1 in South Dakota, in this little gated community called Dakota Dunes. The station was within view of everybody's apartments. We all lived in the same apartment complex. We could see the station from most of our windows. And I spent 2 years there, and my time there was memorable for many reasons. Number one, because there's nothing like your first station, where everybody's broke. Everybody lives in the same apartment complex or thereabouts, because you're all broke and, you have the same amount of money you can pay for rent. And you're all there to just chase this dream. Nobody came to North Sioux City, South Dakota for fun or enjoyment. We came there because we were trying to do this thing, and we were told that you need to start small and you need to say yes to whoever wants to hire you. And that's what I did. And it was such a memorable time. Also, because I show up at this teeny tiny little news station. We were a distant number 3 in the market, just absolutely god awful. And next thing you know, we're getting ready for the 2008 election. And so there I am, a year into my broadcasting career, being told that I'm about to go interview Hillary Clinton. I had no business interviewing Hillary Clinton, and I certainly had no business interviewing Clinton alone as an MMJ by myself in the town of Sioux Center, Iowa. So it's like suddenly you're fast-tracked into this career as you're still learning. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I asked her a question about gas prices. It was humiliating. Why would I ask her that?
Well, that's a sink or swim moment.
Exactly. But it was like, you need to show up. You need to bring your camera. You better look as professional as you can be. The thing I didn't want is for her to look at me and know that I was a year into this broadcasting career. But I'm sure she did know. I remember she called me honey, which I didn't really care for. But what she did not know is that in my panic and in my, just general stress over being alone at this library in Sioux Center about to interview Hillary Clinton, is I got back to the station afterwards and I realized that I had no video of the interview with her, but I had wonderful video of me walking my camera back to the car.
Oh, no.
So I had double punched that interview. So I got back to the station and I'm panicked, freaking out. I can't believe I have lost this video. And it was clear what had happened because you just see my camera bobbing all the way back to the car. Horrible. And I got back and I told the main anchor what had happened. His name was Mark Hall. And he was like, you better find a way to turn this story. And I remember looking up at the clock and we had a 6:00 newscast and it was 3:30. And I said, Mark, I can't. It's 3:30. The newscast is at 6. I've double punched this interview. I can't do it. And he said, you better find a way to get a story on the air at 6:00. I don't care how much time you have. You get a story on the air for 6:00. And I got a story on the air for 6:00. I took whatever sound from her speech, that she gave at that library. And I'll never forget that because he was the first person in my career to tell me, no excuses. There are no excuses. Hillary Clinton was here in our viewing area and you will get a story on our airwaves. And I don't care what it takes and I don't care what time it is. And that's something I now tell to young reporters who come to me and say, I don't have time. It's just so late. It's like, no, get a story on the air. That's your job. That's what you're here to do. And it took him telling me that to realize that there was no room for excuses at all.
Nothing like a burned in memory for you.
Right? Right? And, I didn't see it as him being mean at the time. I saw it as someone who knew better than me and was not about to let some 23-year-old girl tell him how it was.
Right. And to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a lesson that I needed to learn at that time. And I remember it. And I have such great respect for Mark Hall, talk to him every now and then. And yeah, those are the people you meet in your broadcasting career. And without them, you would never learn, you would never advance, and you would never do better for next time.
So when you get your next job, it's in Wichita, Kansas.
That's right.
And you are anchor reporter.
That's right.
So you get a chance to be on the set a little bit more, right?
Yes. So I took the job initially as a reporter in Wichita. And when I arrived, no, I hadn't even quite arrived yet, but I had signed the reporter contract. And all of a sudden, a weekend anchor position popped up on the job ads. And I thought, well, shoot, I want that job. Why didn't they tell me that one was open? And so I called them and I said, I really want this job that I just signed the contract for. Thank you very much for that. Also, what about this other job? Would you like to hire me for that one instead? And their answer was sort of non-committal. It was just, well, why don't you just get here first and let's meet you and let's see what happens from there. And so within the first couple of weeks of arriving there, the weekend anchor who was, I think they were just doing some shuffling around, like they were moving one anchor to a different spot or something. And so he had taken some time off and they said, you can fill in for him this weekend and we'll see how it goes. And so I had an on the job sort of audition. And next thing you know, they did offer me that job. But I don't think that would have happened had I not asked. I don't think I could have expected them to know that I was interested in that job. And I took it. And that's the other thing that I think kids today don't realize is that you might have to work weekends. And a lot of them are unwilling to work weekends. And guess what? Working weekends sucks. Yeah. Working weekends is the worst. I was, 24 years old and everybody's getting married and there's bachelorette parties to go to and I'm working weekends. And my news director at the time was a really tough guy. And he was sort of like, you wanted to be an anchor on the weekend news. Why would you ask for time off to go to a bachelorette party? Don't you want to be the weekend anchor or not? And it was like, you're right. I said I would be your weekend anchor. Why would I take time off for this bachelorette party? And so I missed a lot of things during that period of time, but it was just part of the deal. It was part of the commitment. And, I don't regret missing all those things. Would have been great to go, sure. But it was part of the deal. It was part of the commitment. And that was another of those lessons of you do what you're here to do and your social life is not really of importance to anyone but you.
Well, you shared that story with my class last semester, which I really appreciate that you were giving some great advice, and all the students in their comments, were talking about that. Denise had such great self-confidence in herself. It really encouraged them to think in the same manner, because I think for some people that's hard to do, to be able to say, hey, I appreciate that you hired me, but you know what? I think I want that other job too. I think I can do that. And I think that really kind of encouraged them privately, in their notes that they wrote about that discussion, really moved them.
And I think I don't want them to think that I was confident in those moments, because I wasn't. Making that phone call, I'm sure I sounded less than confident. And I was so not confident in myself that when they handed me that contract, I didn't negotiate it. When they handed me, a little bit more money and this position that I had asked them for, I said, okay. And I signed the papers. And so had I been more self-confident, I would have said, thank you for seeing that I am qualified for this job. Now let's talk about this number on this paper because we can do better. So, it's like, I don't want them to think that you have to feel it inside out that you're confident, because you probably won't. You probably will not feel, that you are ready to ask for that thing that you want. And I don't know how I did, but I did. But I certainly didn't feel like I had any business asking for that job. And I certainly didn't think that they would say yes, so it's sort of like fake it till you make it, make them think you're confident, and negotiate. You have to negotiate. You can't be so thankful and so grateful for an opportunity that you forget that it's a two-way street, and I wish I had negotiated that deal. I mean, it was 2 years, no one was getting rich regardless.
Right.
But yeah, had I been more self-confident, I would have taken it a step further and I would have asked.
Well, I appreciate it, because I think that what you were doing, though, unconsciously, is you provide that role model, which, there have been so many times where you've come back to campus and spoken to our classes, and provided, advice and also just, ways to help our students, which I think is just the ideal situation, because, our that kind of mentorship means so much to a young person to say, okay, well, I can now envision my own future a little bit by listening to your story.
Well, it's paying it forward. I mean, all of the students who came back to Western and told me their stories of how they got to where they were, it sort of felt like, why wouldn't I do the same thing if I ever had something to say? If I ever am fortunate enough to get a job in this industry, why wouldn't I, try to give back in that way? Because that's what this business is all about. It's all about these connections that you make. And it's all about, I don't want to say it's who you know, because it's a little more nuanced than that. It's more about just who you connect with and who you reach out to. And it's such a small business, for better or worse, it's such a small business. And somebody always knows somebody who worked at that market or worked at that station. And so that can get you in trouble in a hurry, but it can also be a great tool as well.
Yeah, especially if you're building positive, strong bridges.
Right. Right.
Burning those bridges after you've left them.
Oh, yeah.
So you make it to the Quad Cities. And was that, I'm sure that was intentional. You wanted to be back in the area, right?
That's right. My situation in Wichita, it wasn't the greatest work environment. It got a little toxic after a while. And I remember feeling like, can I do this again? Can I go to another station that I might end up not liking? And I learned a lot in Wichita. I got really tough in Wichita, and but it wasn't the best work environment. And so I remember feeling like, gosh, what if I go to my next station and I hate it? What do I do? And so it really felt like the next move that I was going to make was going to be intentional. It wasn't just going to be going to the next station that called me back. And so at that time, my husband and I had just gotten married, and we decided what we really wanted for the long haul. And that was going back to the Quad Cities, where he had family here and I had some connections here because I had interned at WQAD back in the summer of 2005, where I lived with Allison just the way that we said that we would. And so it seemed like a place we would want to live, regardless of career. And so I reached out to the guy who was my assignment editor at the time that I interned at WQAD, and now he's the news director.
Wow.
And I sent him an email and I said, "Hi, Alan, do you remember me? I was an intern for you. And he said, I sure do. Let's have a conversation. And we had a conversation and he said, look, Denise, all I have is a reporter job. Are you sure you want a reporter job? It's going to be a little pay cut. It's going to be a if you want to look at it that way, it was technically a step down, if you want to compare markets. I mean, when I told people in Wichita that I was going back to market 99, they were all like, oh, okay. I see. That's a nice choice for you. So, it wasn't like this move that people were impressed by any stretch, but I sort of had this long-term goal in mind where it was like, if we're in this place where we have a family connection, where we are doing more than just following my work and my work only, maybe we can actually both do something that we like to do. We can be around people that we want to be around and, still do something in broadcasting. And so I took this reporter job, and that lasted for all of maybe 5-6 months before the main anchor left. And then they hired me to be the main anchor. And so that felt like everything happened the way that it was supposed to happen. It felt meant to be that we would come to this place, and the doors opened exactly as I hoped that they would open. And so, yeah, I've been the main anchor ever since.
And one of the things that I think is great that you're doing also is a podcast, and it's called On a Mother Level.
Yes,
So
On a Mother Level.
Yeah.
I adore that name. My sister-in-law came up with it. It's genius. And it's all about my life more as a mom and a news anchor. So more personal first, but I use some of the same broadcasting skills where I just interview moms in the community, parents in the community, just about their experience with motherhood or fatherhood. Right now, I'm in the midst of a little like Father's Day month where I'm interviewing all dads. And I love podcasting because it's a longer form. I can spend an hour with someone as opposed to spending 20 minutes with them knowing that I will only air probably 40 seconds of it.
Right.
So you can kind of dive in, and it's also a way for my viewers to get to know me better. They hear me and see me in a different way than they ever would seeing me sit behind this desk. And it's also a way that news stations are trying to expand their footprint, because we have determined, from what I understand from the people who are paid to understand this, from what I understand, the television audience is never going to get bigger. They believe the television audience is the size that it will be, and it will probably get smaller, but it will not get bigger. So where do you get customers if we know that no more customers are going to purchase this product? So we find other ways to get these new customers. And so I hope that by doing things like the podcast, we're finding these new customers in these key demographics who want to experience local news in a different sort of way.
And one of the other responsibilities kind of your job, and I'm wondering how positive or negative that is the social media responsibilities that you have to do as somebody that works in the media. What's it like now?
Talk about a love-hate relationship with social media. Social media is the most direct connection that you could hope to have with your viewers. Before they would have to send you an email, or you would get a letter from prison or something like that. Now you can get a comment directly on a picture that you've posted saying, hey, what about this? Or, hey, what about that? So I like that direct connection. I like that I can post right now and tell you that there's been a verdict reached in the Molly Tibbetts case, and that post will get shared hundreds of times in the next 20 minutes. I love that. But social media is the beast that always needs fed.
Yeah.
It always needs new content. And at the moment, Facebook is fighting that new content all day long. You have to trick Facebook into thinking that you're not posting news articles. You have to make it think that you're posting organic content, because they don't want to share news articles. If I share a post from WQAD.com, it will never see the light of day. Facebook shuts it down immediately. It's something about the algorithms and the way that they respond to publishers. They shut it down. But if I post the same text of that web article with an organic photo, Facebook opens the doors for it to be shared. It's the strangest thing, and it changes all the time. So you never know how Facebook is going to respond to you. So you can feed the beast, but it might not necessarily get fed. And then it's just, especially in the last year, let's say, Facebook is a toxic waste dump. It is just full of negativity. And I hate it because you post something and there's always the dissenting voice. And because we're told to interact with everybody who comments, you're forced to see the things that people have to say to you. And I hate that I even remember, out of the 100 great comments, I hate that the one I remember is the one that hurt my feelings. When you post about coming out of the pandemic and coming back to work and, coming out of the basement studio, I should say. And I remember posting something like, I'm so glad my boss is letting me keep this shorter schedule so I can be home with my family. And there was this huge paragraph about how, well, isn't that nice? Most people don't have all these opportunities. And here you are, talking about your life and your family, And it's like those comments get stuck in your head because you're thinking, well, I didn't say that you just feel misunderstood a lot because of social media, and I hate that part of it because that one stupid comment, as long as I've been in this business, that one stupid comment will stick with you for the next 48 hours. I hate that. I wish I could train myself to stop feeling that way, but it still feels so personal that someone, misunderstands you. There was a post that I made about a podcast guest, and people started ripping into my podcast guest. And that was a no-fly zone for me because my podcast guest was a mom of 8 who lives in my community, who gave me an hour of her time. And the idea that she would come to my Facebook page where she had just been my guest and seen the things that people were saying about her, it really bothered me because though I signed up for that criticism, perhaps that woman didn't. And that sort of stuff really, really gets to me because I just don't know why anyone has to go online and see negativity like that. For what reason exactly? I don't know what anyone has to gain from that sort of a thing. And so while we have to use this social media, we have to have this connection. Some of those connections are just really negative. And I told my boss the other day, I said, if you would let me delete Facebook, I would delete it right now, today. And he was like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, as you said, it's something that we have to live with because, it provides that connection, that communication, but there's so much one-sidedness that people just, it becomes a divided platform.
Yeah. Yeah. And politics certainly don't help. And I'm guilty of it too, where you just read the headline and you kind of make a decision based on that headline. And then people will comment and tell you how wrong the headline was. But if they had clicked the article, they would see that the information is right there. It was just beyond the headline, so you're constantly arguing with people about an article they've never even read. And you're thinking, well, if you had just clicked, you would see, but because it's the headline or because it's the caption and that sort of thing, it's like I said, I'm guilty of it too. So, but I'm just not a weirdo who comments and says negative things to local television people, but
that would look weird if you were starting to comment on.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. But yeah, it's strange because you're fighting for clicks, but those headlines can be inflammatory in themselves because you're fighting for these clicks, and so sometimes it brings out the worst in everybody.
So you've always provided such great advice for our students, but let's imagine that there are some people that haven't heard from you yet. So what kind of advice can you give to our future students about how to be prepared for today's media?
Sure. Number one, learn to write. If you are the best writer in the newsroom, you will go far. It will surprise you how often there are horrible grammar errors and horrible spelling errors that appear on graphics that remain on the screen for 40 seconds at a time. It's that attention to detail and learning to write and use good grammar that unfortunately is a rarity. It is a rarity to find a good writer, because even if you don't have the right qualifications, even if, I've been in meetings with my boss where he's debating between hiring one of 3 producer candidates. He'll always hire the best writer, even if somebody else came from the better journalism school or had the better this, or, a fancier looking resume paper or what have you. If he feels like you're the better writer, you will get the job and you will be more successful, because I can teach you how to write for broadcast, but it is much harder for me to teach you English 101, and grammar and such. I can teach you easy broadcast techniques. That's no problem. But to undo bad grammar habits, that's a lot harder for me to do. And I have much less patience for that. So really, really hone in on your writing and your attention to detail. Then it's probably something everybody hears all the time, but you have to get your hands dirty with all the stuff. That's the beauty of Western. When I hear about kids who went to Mizzou, the broadcasting school, but they couldn't touch a camera until their junior year and they had taken this and this and this and this and this a class, imagine you have those 2 more years that you've gotten to touch all this equipment that was banned at other schools. So recognize that that is a huge asset to you. Touch all the things, try all the things. Roger Sadler had no reason to let me start that Macomb magazine. I did no business starting some random Macomb talk show, but he just let me because I asked, and it's just, the opportunities are endless if you just ask and show that you're willing to work hard. So do that for sure. And then my most recent piece of advice, which still it amazes me, especially since we're getting close to summer. There's an email that you can click on when you go to WQAD.com. There's a way that you can really quick and easy send us news tips. And the news tips go to everybody's email inbox. It goes to me, it goes to the secretary, it goes to the news director, it goes to everybody. So basically you're sending it to 200 people who get all the emails all the time, okay? And we'll get a news tip and it'll say news tip from Steve. And I'll click on it and it will say, "Hi, my name is Steve. I'm a junior at blah, blah university, and I would like an internship for this summer. Please call me. Bye." You just sent that email to 200 people who do not care. They do not care because you have gone to the website and you clicked on the easiest way to contact us and you went, "Cool, just applied for an internship."
Yep.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't, because that email just got deleted 200 times by people who do not care. Now, imagine that you looked up the contact us page, and instead of going to the news tip thing, you said, "Oh, look, one of their brand new reporters is actually a friend of mine's brother, or I know someone who also interned at the station he interned at. I'm going to send him a message." Okay. So now I'm going to send a message directly to a reporter. Bing. Now that's, hi, reporter Josh. My name is Steve. I'm a senior at blah, blah university. And I know someone who you might know, or I'm familiar with the station that you interned at. Can you talk to me about intern opportunities at your station? And suddenly reporter Josh is going, "You asked me? That's great. I would be happy to help you." And now you have an in without even trying, just because you attempted to go a little farther than that news tip that went to everybody. We all want to be emailed and asked if we can help you in some way. If I get a personal email that says, hey, can you ask your news director about this? I will do that every time. But if you take the easy way out and send it to the news tips email, you will never get a response, and you'll go, meh, I guess they're not hiring interns this year. Well, we would have been if you had actually cared enough about the opportunity, because it's really showing that you care. It's really showing that you actually want that position that you say that you want in the email, So long story short, find that direct connection. Even if you have none, even if you go through the list and there's nobody that you recognize, still pick one that looks the friendliest, pick one who's wearing the cool shirt, personally reach out to someone, and they will help you every single time. I promise you, if you send an email to an anchor or reporter, they will respond every single time.
Yeah, I tell you, that's preaching. That is absolutely the truth. I've found so many people, but I would say this about you. I remember saying when you were a senior, you were one of the first people I asked to come speak to my freshmen, because I was teaching that class. And I said, Denise, can you come and talk and give some advice? And you showed up, and I think it was probably a Monday at 8:00 class, which was not, as a senior, something that you would have wanted to do, but you did. And you came back and spoke to those kids and gave them, get involved, be involved, take advantage of the opportunity. You started while you were still in school doing that. And that's why I appreciate not only all the times I would see you come back to speak to our classes, but you're serving, as you said, on the alumni board. I appreciate that. That is great. You are alumni award winner from our department that we were so honored you came back and spoke at our banquet. So many instances, Denise, that I just want to say thank you from everyone here. I know all of our faculty have just been so honored to have you as not only a student, a graduate, and now somebody that's connected with the alumni program.
Thank you so much. And I'm just forever grateful to Western, because you guys were the first people to say yes. Sure that maybe that Sioux City station did, on a professional sense, but you guys said yes first, and you gave me every opportunity that I could have hoped for. And I'm so grateful to that. And whenever anybody talks about this journalism school or that journalism school, it's like you have one right in your backyard, and you need to check it out because the opportunities there are unmatched.
Well, I'm sure I'll be in contact with you again within the next year to say, Denise, can you talk to our students? And in the meantime, I wish the best for you and your family. And
thank you so much.
And next time when you said Allison, I have not seen Allison in years. I hope she is well.
She is.
We're giving her a shout out, Allison. So oh
yeah, she's doing great. She has 2 boys also, and I'm in regular contact with her. And It's just another way that Western's just given me everything.
Okay, well, give her my best too.
I sure will.
So Denise, again, thanks for being on the podcast, and thanks to all of our weekly viewers out there. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, or you want to recommend someone, just send me an email. We always like to hear from our alums, and we hope that you continue to watch and listen to the podcast, and appreciate everyone's support. So until next week, stay safe, take care, and God bless.